Well, it's a fine summer day on the beach. Do you know what that is out there? It's the Pacific Ocean. And do you know what this is? It's the Sometimes Vlog. Yeah. It's a vlog that happens sometimes. And check this out. Look at all of these seagull footprints. They're everywhere. And there were about 1 billion seagulls standing right over here until I walked up. Then I guess I wasn't cool enough for them, so they've spread out. I don't know if you can see them on either side of me. Look at that, my friends. It's the Pacific Ocean. We are staring out west at the sunset. The sun is still up somewhere above the clouds, but the evening fog or the evening clouds or whatever you want to call it have come rolling in, only to burn off once again when the sun gets high up in the sky tomorrow. It is a beautiful sight. You know what's weird? I have plenty of opportunity to go down to the ocean. I do live in Anaheim, California, which isn't next to the beach, but it's not far from the beach. Can you hear that? Listen to those waves. Wow. And yet I never avail myself of the opportunity. It's very rare that I would go down to the beach. The only time I seem to go down to the beach is when I'm in a different state, which is the case today, because even though I live nearby the Pacific Ocean, this isn't the portion of the Pacific Ocean that I live near. This is the North Pacific Ocean, the southern part of the Northern Pacific Ocean, in the state of Washington. And this, where I'm standing, is Long Beach. It's a giant peninsula of land. I believe it's known as the world's longest drivable beach. I don't know if you can see, they're way down there. There are several little crossover vehicles, pickup trucks, off-highway vehicles, all along the beach here. London and I have driven through the state of Oregon and come up here to Washington. Now, if we'd have had more time, we'd probably go even farther north. We'd check out Olympia National Park. We'd check out Seattle. We'd do whatever. In fact, for a little while, there was a little bit of a plan for me and him to go to Seattle. There's some museums there I'd really like to see and check out that I've never got the opportunity to film. In fact, I don't think I've ever, until this moment, done any Random Land or Sometimes Vlog filming in the state of Washington, which is so weird because we were up here all the time when I was in the band The Scarred to play shows, and I've played shows in Seattle, I've played shows in Spokane, I've played shows in the state of Washington before. I think even in 2004 or 5, we played in Hoquiam or Aberdeen, over up the coast a little bit where Kurt Cobain was born. We had a whole song when we were going down the highway forever behind all the logging trucks. Going down to Aberdeen, to Aberdeen, to Aberdeen, going down to Aberdeen where Kurt Cobain was born. Just the kind of like weird random stuff you say when you're bored in a van full of dudes going to play a show or whatever. And for some reason that has stuck into my brain for years and years and years. And whenever I read anything about Kurt Cobain or Nirvana or where Kurt Cobain was born or anything like that, oh, I don't think so, wavy wave wave. I had your number. I always think of that little diddle. Going down to Aberdeen, to Aberdeen, to Aberdeen. Anyway, we had a plan to go do that. But in order to do it, we would really have to drive another whole day up there and then immediately turn around and boomerang back down. So I threw it out there, put it out on the web. If anybody lives there, we could like throw our stuff in your house. So we didn't have to put it in a parked car in downtown Seattle for the stuff we wanted to see. And there were a bunch of people who replied and all that stuff. But ultimately, London decided, like, you know what I'd rather do is turn around here and spend like leisurely days going down the coast with you and hanging out. So I asked him today, I'm like, okay, what do we want to do here? We had a very little plan. The original plan was to go east, but then it was like 110 degrees or whatever, like I told you in the last video. And so this is nice. This is like 70 degrees. I mean, I've got my jacket on because the wind is nice and cold off the ocean. And we are staying in a little hotel right over here, right off of the beach over here, which is lovely. There's no air conditioner. It's the kind of place you have to open the door, put a little fan in the back door that overlooks the sea, but from a distance of I don't know, 2 football fields or so. We had a pretty productive day though. We hung out, we did a lot of stuff. He's just at that age, 16 is that age. I actually said to him today, I go, are you just at the age where everything is boring to you except for what you decide to do yourself by yourself? And he's like, Yeah, pretty much. And I can kind of remember being like that. I can kind of remember being 16 and just like, with your parents, like, yeah, with your friends. I think I was a little different. My motivations were more like, I got to travel everywhere. I've got to see everything. I want to expand my horizons. And London is much more interested in digital stuff, as most kids are these days, but he's very interested in game mechanics and computers and the way things work and different sorts of challenges, and I'm interested in. And of course, like any parent that concerns you, you know, your kid is different than you. You're worried like, am I not doing the right thing? Is he not getting enough of this or this type of enrichment or brain thing? But he's good, he's having fun. And the main thing, as we were talking about, is he wanted to be able to spend time with me, which is what happened. And he's like, oh, I'd be ready to go home now, kind of thing. So typical 16-year-old stuff. See, look, there's some people driving down the beach right there. There's a guy having a stogie, smoking a stogie out the window as he cruises down the beach. So we're having a good time. It's nice to spend time with each other. The car threw a code today, meaning the check engine light came on, and I panicked like, oh no, because there was a small oil leak in it before we left. I'm thinking, not the good car too. And so I cruised into a Ford dealership. I said, hey, how much would it be just to look at a code? I knew they were closing. And I go, there would be a different light for oil, low oil, right? They're like, yeah, okay, whew, it's not an oil leak. And then I went to AutoZone, they run the code for free. Turns out the code is like a little sensor, has to do with emissions, and it shouldn't be any kind of problem. But there was that weird panic of the day. We had the panic of the day. And then I'll tell you another funny story. We showed up to a hotel over here, and when we got there, we got into the elevator area to go up to the room. Downstairs, there was, I don't know, some people screaming at each other, and then a surly young chap came out of the room, and he was like throwing stuff around, punching the wall type of deal, very angsty, while the people inside were arguing and screaming. And later they came out, and it was just a family. They're having a bad day on vacation. I've seen lots of that. I mean, going to Disney parks, you see all the people screaming, you ruined my vacation. Sometimes people get real stressed out. I get like that even too sometimes, where I'm trying to have a good time. We're supposed to be having a good time. I'm sure any of you that have kids or have tried to pull off a vacation with multiple people or anything like that have been through that experience or seen somebody melt down in that kind of way. But it was interesting because I was telling London this even. I said, you know, for all the sort of regrets that I have in my life, the mistakes, or, you know, worried because I had been divorced and all that, like worried that he has a stepdad and he's got a step alley and he's got all, you know, I go, at least I can be really grateful that, you know, your stepdad's not like that, and your other family doesn't fight, and we don't fight like that, and you've at least had that kind of peace. Because the way I grew up, my parents got along really well with each other. They still do. They still like each other. They're still married. I was born at the tail end of them being 18. So I was an early surprise, I think, for my parents. And and they did really well. They kept our whole family together and all that kind of stuff. But I sort of had it both ways. I always say I kind of grew up with a foot in each world, because I had the kind of nuclear family, one brother and two parents who are still married to this day. We all get along with each other to this very day. But everyone I grew up with in the neighborhood that I grew up with in, they are all broken homes and crazy stuff. And then some of my best friends who were in the band with me even and all that kind of stuff had crazy broken homes of like drug problems and serious domestic violence and issues, a lot of issues. And so I also sort of grew up there. We were talking at one of the brothers' funerals of this family that I sort of half grew up in, and they were like, they gave me the ashes of my friend, some of the ashes. We split them up. And they were like, you know, you're like the honorary third or fourth brother because you were there in that situation with us. And I'm like, yeah, it's weird that I grew up like that. And then for the rest of the nights I'd go home, you know what I mean? So I've seen the way that people grow up with like pain and hardship and stuff like that. And I don't know, I think it helped me later in life to see that and to sort of experience it, not secondhand, but not firsthand, sort of in between. And I was always on hand to defend my bros, whether it was weird stepdads or whatever it was, or even sometimes just, you know, their own family drama from each other, or stop the two older brothers from killing each other. And it is really strange. Like, I think that did help me see things differently in the world. One, because I don't judge people who are going through that stuff. I know that it happens to good people. I know that when you see people going through a really hard time, whether it's substance issues or job issues or just desperate poverty or drama or over emotional, crazy stuff, fighting in the family, broken homes. I've been with those people, and you know that their lowest moments are not who they are, and you can see the beauty and the love and the wonderful stuff in families like that, and you know friends like that, or you're around people like that. And you know, I told my friend who grew up and got out of that, and he just recently had a kid of his own, I go, dude, you're gonna learn lessons from your upbringing where you don't have to repeat the cycle. And I go, I'm kind of grateful that I sort of half grew up in your family, because I think it taught me a lot of lessons on like being patient, talking a lot, and explaining, when I get upset, explaining it to my own kid and stuff like that. Anyway, it's a weird kind of thing, but it was just in my brain as I'm taking a walk on the beach, and I'm just thinking over my past and my friend's past and my son's past and his future. And even though, you know, things didn't go correctly according to plan, I was thinking there is a lot of things I can be grateful for, and how London was able to grow up and stuff like that. And even though, like, for example, we didn't get away on a 2-month road trip or anything, we were only away for a couple of days, super grateful that we got to do it and spend this time together. Even if he is 16 and sort of wants to drive me up the wall, or I drive him up the wall, or something like that, at different times. You know how teenagers are. So just thinking over stuff like that, not putting myself higher or lower than anyone in any other situation. In fact, I think I tend to err on the side of going too far the opposite way, of like feeling pride and just always feeling like I'm a failure. I'm one of those people, that's my default thing. If I'm in an argument with someone, if I'm the one who's like, you did something wrong to me, it takes me a long time to get there. It's always first, I beat myself up for a long time thinking, what have I done wrong? What have I done to deserve this? What have I done to pull this in? All that kind of stuff. That is sort of my default mental position, and it's pretty unhealthy, and it led to me, it really fed into anxiety problems, into depression, stuff that I would have anyway as I was growing up and when I was a younger man. And let me tell you, it's like, it's a healthy attitude versus being like super prideful and cocky and narcissistic and never thinking you're wrong. It's probably healthier than that in some ways, but it can also be sort of toxic in its own right, to always blame yourself, to always like pull that in and internalize that, and you know, like, London's mom and I got divorced, and so that means I'm a failure, and I raised him like a failure, and if I didn't get to do the perfect plan and take him to Disney World every single summer, then I'm a failure, or whatever it is. Just insert any kind of example of thing. And the only reason I'm bringing this up, kind of, is because there are these weird little moments, whether they're seeing someone in a worse position than you and going, okay, well, I'm grateful that it's not that bad, which seems kind of voyeuristically wrong, so like pain tourism. I don't mean it in that kind of a way. It's really hard. I think you understand what I'm trying to say. Or whether it's just literally sitting there and breathing and thinking and taking stock of, well, what actually happened and stuff like that. There is a lot to be grateful for. I just want to put it out there. I'm only bringing this up because I know there must be a lot of you out there who are dads, sons, mothers, daughters, sister, brother, uncle, cousins, who have felt the same way. You know, did I raise my kids right? Did I do everything that I could do for them? You know, am I a failure? Or maybe you feel that way in your relationships with, whether it's a significant other or a family member or parents. You feel that way towards your parents. You know, am I a failure? Did I do everything wrong? And you just, maybe you've taken that to heart the way that I have many times in my life, and just feel dismally like you failed. And maybe it's even so bad that sometimes you can't think of anything worse to compare it to or anything. I just want to say, I don't think you're the failure that you think you are. Because I get like that. I think, oh man, I'm a failure. I have failed. And it's just horrible, you know. So whenever I'm having, I do that with little things. I do that like if I'm having car trouble. I'm like, oh, I'm a failure, you know. And you just get one life. It's not a contest. There's not an exact path that everyone's meant to follow, even the path that we've laid out in our own minds. And just because everything doesn't go according to plan doesn't mean that it's a failure. Ooh, look at this dead crab right here. Now the dead crab, he has failed. He is dead. But it's not over until you're a dead crab. It's not over until you're a dead crab. And that's what I'm walking around on the beach reminding myself, that for every failure, there's an opportunity to overcome or do one better the next time, or learn, right? Like, I was carving some stuff, and carving these big logs into like, they're like half rounded pieces of wood. And I've done 2 of them. And like I carved the one big giant tiki, right, out of a round log. And I've carved lots of tiki masks that I think look pretty good. Like I was, trust me, I was surprising myself. And I'm like, wow, like I'm getting the hang of this thing, right? So I got these like sort of rounded portions of a log. I'm like, oh, I'll kind of do like I've seen flat masks, I've done that. I've done a round tiki, I've seen that. But I've never seen anyone do like a sort of half round, like a half tiki or a third round of a tiki. Anyway, it's hard to describe what I'm talking about unless I had a piece of log here to show you. But basically I went to town on these pieces of wood and I was showing the results to a friend and I go, well, at least I've learned how to not make a tiki. At least I've learned how to not carve that sign. At least I've learned how to not have an argument with your significant other. At least I've learned how to not go do a job interview. At least I've learned how to not purchase a used vehicle. You know what I mean? So I don't think all hope is lost just because we fail. I think that the difference between truly failing and learning something and succeeding from it because you've learned something are night and day. And you can kind of turn any frown upside down if you put yourself in the right frame of mind, but it's difficult. Sometimes the stress is overwhelming, sometimes that feeling, sometimes that vision of what you wanted to happen is so strong, you know, and then when you fall short or it goes a different way, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, I could really beat myself up about this. So I'm only really sharing thoughts that I'm going around. When I say you, I'm using the royal you. When I say we, I'm using the royal we. Because this is all spinning around my mind as we've come into the hotel. London's relaxed. He's eating Subway. He's like, you want to walk to the beach with me? You know, a cloudy beach walk? No thanks. And so I'm just out here at sunset, thinking over my life, thinking over my failures, thinking over the things where things actually did go according to plan. Not many times. And that's the real crazy part. Not much has gone according to plan in my life at all. I wanted to make stuff. I wanted to be like a Muppeteer or grow up and be like the guy in the goofy suit at Disneyland or something. I wanted to do stuff with puppets. I wanted to be a director and a filmmaker. And then when I got to teenage years, it was like, that's really impossible. This is pre a YouTube situation, really pre social media or internet or any kind of way to get into that stuff, unless you knew somebody who knew somebody or that kind of thing. And so I was like, well, the one cool thing where you can make art and you can make creative stuff and people will hear it and listen to it, because it was thriving in the 90s and in the early 2000s, was the music scene, right? Especially the independent music scene, the punk rock music scene, and I got totally fell into that world. So my dream changed. And then it was like, okay, my new dream is I want to be Joe Strummer, right? I want to do some like really cool stuff like The Clash. I want to make some cool, inspiring, lasting music. And I really want to write lyrics about what's going on in my crazy mind, all the anxiety and everything, and put it out there. Hopefully someone will understand it, they'll hear it, they'll make a connection with it, and they'll love that music the way that I love other music. Well, that never really happened. First of all, we never sounded like The Clash. I wish. Everyone was like, you guys sound like Green Day. Like, oh, we're trying to sound like The Clash. Nothing wrong with sounding like Green Day, just that wasn't the goal. And in the scene we were in, that didn't work. And then we got signed to a label. We were touring, we got signed to a record label. The dream was almost there, to an independent record label. But the independent scene was getting so big. Their distributor, we didn't know this till after we signed, had just become Universal Records. So when our first album on that label came out, it was everywhere. I got that moment where I walked into Tower Records, my record was there. I'm on the East Coast, I walk into a Best Buy, my record is there. And more importantly, and bigger deal at the time, Virgin Megastore. I think we had end caps in some of the cities on the East Coast. And it was like, dude, this is big time. This is everywhere. It was online everywhere, which was a big deal back then. It's on Amazon, which was like impossible. I mean, now anyone can put anything on Amazon, but not at the time. It was like, oh my gosh, it's happening. The shows started to blow up. We started getting offers to tour with people and play with people that were big. And then the financial collapse thing happened in 2007, the same year that my kid was born. So it was like, cool, we're gonna have a kid. We got this van. We're making a little bit of money from touring now, and hopefully this will become, you know, like, this is it. This will be our lives. The dream is right within sight. And then the financial collapse happened. Almost every independent distributor went out of business. Tons of bands that were at our size. The bands that were just kind of just a toe in the door, not quite over the hump of being too big to fail in any way. all got dropped from labels, or in our case, our label went out of business because without the distributors, because a lot of the big distributors like theirs dropped a lot of the labels off their distribution roster to concentrate, because all the record stores started closing, Tower Records went out of business. So it's like we got in the door right before the disaster. It's like, it's almost like getting approved for membership and finally having the money to be a member of Club 33. And on your first visit, you're halfway up the stairs at Disneyland. I'm gonna see it, I'm gonna get into Club 33. And then they tell you, oh, sorry, we're shutting Club 33 down. It was almost like that. And then of course, at the same time, I got really ill with the celiac disease. This is a whole life, I don't want to recap my whole life story. But the point is that was my dream. Then I was stay-at-home dad with illness, never a dream, but those were wonderful years. Looking back, my small son, well, we were buddies. I could have had 10 kids. I love kids. I understand kids. They understand me. I mean, I could have run a daycare center or something like that, because I don't mind kids. The smaller the better. My mom is funny because she's like less interested in the babies. She's like, give them to me when they're 12 or 13. They're more interesting to talk to and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I love babies. Babies are so cute. They're so perfect. Just little jelly things. I love when kids get old enough to talk and they just tell you things. You got a really round face, or whatever little kid things they say. Those were great years in a way. But during those years, I was definitely not living the life that I thought I was going to be living. I was definitely not able to travel, to do anything, to pursue any kind of passion, any kind of art, other than some graphic design for other people. The band was just, I can remember actually, probably 2006 or so, Joe Lujan, the manager of the Showcase Theater, once told me, he goes, yeah, you guys are doing great. You're selling the place out now. You're getting bigger and bigger. He goes, just one thing, never get stuck in that 18 and up or 21 and up world, in those bar world. Once you get in that world, you never come back out to that all ages scene, to growing it's your plateau. And after all that financial collapse stuff, so many venues shut down that's where we were. We're playing bars and stuff like this. And so it took a long time before I finally accepted, dude, the definition of insanity is repeating something over and over and expecting different results. I've got to do something to change. And I had become so cynical, so jaded, so miserable, just because I wasn't on the path that I thought I should be on, right? I had just had this vivid picture of just multiple paths, but I wasn't on any of them. I was sitting around and just rotting away, really. And I released one last good album with the band and just struggled to do all kinds of stuff. And then a bunch of things went wrong that weren't my fault, but in you know, looking backwards are kind of blessings in disguise. I kind of write about this in my book that will be coming out eventually. I got to find someone to print the book, or I got to actually publish the book. It's finished. It's edited now. My friend Tyler Evans has edited this book. We touch on this stuff. I just wasn't on the path. I was miserable, just rotting away on the inside, terminal rot. And I was so sick. I told this story many times, but this all factors into what I'm thinking about today. Because I'm trying to just take stock. I like to go backwards sometimes and just kind of run through the story myself. Remind myself of where I'm at on the board, kind of thing. I remember talking to my neighbor and being like, I'm gonna die. I don't know how to do a will. I got to get life insurance. And I did actually purchase life insurance because I was convinced I was gonna die. And then London started going to school, kindergarten. And this is how long ago this was now, 10 years ago, 11, 12 years ago. And I was like, you know, before the band, what was my dream? You know, I really wanted to be a filmmaker and tell stories. The only thing people say I'm good at in the band, people tell me all the time, yeah, your music sucks, but we like to come and hang out with you. We like to hear the stories and laugh at the jokes. And so the dream changed again. I thought, at least maybe my dream can be making some videos that a few people will watch, and that maybe London will watch one day when I'm dead. You know, maybe I can bring a smile to a few faces. Little Kermit the Frog action where he's like, millions of people happy, and that was the temptation. Except for me, it was like, maybe tens of people happy. And so I started tinkering around with YouTube, filming stuff for other people at first, doing editing for other people. I really didn't want to be on camera because I really didn't want to be the face of something. I also really wanted it to be a group project. I really didn't want to be a standalone, the face of anything, and I really didn't want to be the face of a group. I didn't want to repeat the band thing, but I kind of accidentally did. Working with the group at first, great guys, all of them are great. I have no beef or regrets or anything like that. Fun, but it just turns out the way the internet is and stuff like that, you develop a brand or a character, or people want to see your face, and you go, Adam Wu is the one that convinced me. You should be a face on camera doing your own thing. I started doing the Random Land thing, in a time where people really hated adults going to anything fun for some reason. And I got made fun of mercilessly by my own friends, by everybody, and started just going to Disneyland just because it was something I was really passionate about, to film that, do a little bit of history. I really wanted to branch out and do more. So anyway, long story short, I don't want to go through that whole story. I've told that story. But long story short, I came up with something that at least made me feel somewhat creatively fulfilled, like I was doing something creative. It was something different. Nobody else was doing it at that time, which is a really key, important thing. I would have never started doing it if it was like today. Just like I would never have gotten millions of, all these tattoos if I'd have known that in 2007 and 8, a few years later, every 18-year-old would get emo sleeves, you know what I mean? It was kind of like that. I'm a contrarian, I think, a little bit sometimes, but nobody was doing it. So I thought, here's a little area where I can just be a nerd. I'll be the one weird nerd that's doing this. I can have my little world. And then it expanded and went from there. And I never thought in a million years anyone would watch it, that anyone would enjoy it, that me sharing my struggle or my stories would reach so many people who've told me, geez, hundreds of people over the years, like, the quest for positivity and all that kind of stuff. And this wasn't even me switching dream from band to this. I had quit the band and stopped and was just in limbo for just a little bit. I'd already kind of started tinkering with the videos, but that wasn't a dream. It was just some kind of way to keep myself from going insane, just to creatively occupy my time. And at some point, connecting with people like that, I realized that me sharing what I was going through, because immediately after that, the divorce started. I was like, I remember the words to me when I quit the band were, so now you're not even going to be a guy in a band, you're just going to be nothing. And I felt a sea change there. And like, yeah, I guess I'll just be nothing. I mean, that's what I am, nothing. And just sharing that kind of stuff and connecting with people, it's so weird and ironic that I then connected with thousands more people than I ever connected with sharing my feelings through lyrics or music. Most people never understood the lyrics I was writing. Maybe I wasn't any good at it. And then telling stories and entertaining people, and then the amount of people who come up to me and go, man, I took my kids down Route 66 and we had the best time, or we went to Enchanted Forest, or I ran into people the other day in Enchanted Forest who were like, we came here because those videos you did. We were like inspired to come out here and bring the kids. Instead of doing a vacation at the typical place, we decided to come up here, and we had so much fun doing the road trip thing, build all these family memories. And I kind of have that in the back of my mind the last couple of days now here on this beach. And part of this is because I've been talking to London a lot about, like, all right, you're 16 now. Soon you will not give a crap about what I say for several years, and you'll be out doing your own thing. I need to impart as much of what I can tell you about how to think about the world and stuff while I can, and then good luck, right? Send you out into the world to figure it out. And so I've been kind of retracing my steps in a way last couple days. And it's just bizarre. It's bizarre that I just connected with much more people and brought a lot more joy and connection by doing this thing that was just from the heart and from the soul and wasn't calculated in any way. So the point is, the whole moral of the story to myself, and the moral of the story I've been trying to tell London about, and the only reason I'm sharing this is because I think somebody might find some value in this. Maybe others of you will be like, what is this crap that you're talking about? Sorry for saying crap so many times. I'm on a crap streak, I guess. It's a crap shoot, whether I'll say crap. Weird. It's just, you may think I'm not on the right path. There's the path. I picture myself on that path. Look at all these other people who are on the path. Everyone's doing all this and they're doing all this. I'm not part of it. I'm an outsider. I'm on the outside. Maybe you are. Maybe your dream is to become a YouTuber and it just doesn't work. Or maybe your dream is to become a baker and it just doesn't work. Or maybe your dream is to become, I don't know, a maker of animatronics or anything, a professional gamer, and it's not working. Like mine was to be a musician and do all this stuff, and it just didn't work. And I just see the other people that were on that path and being successful, and I'm not a bitter guy. I don't jump to bitterness first, but I did, like I said, I beat myself up about it. Like, I must just be a failure. I'm an idiot. I'm a loser. And I'm just here to tell you that just because you're not on that path, the one you picture yourself on, doesn't mean that there's not another path that you can take. And it doesn't mean that you won't find your tribe or your people or another skill or another thing that you're meant to do. And a case in point is that I could just tell you that, oh, and then later I started doing Random Land or the Sometimes vlog and meeting people and connecting with people on that level, and then story solved. It was like I wanted to be a musician, but it turns out I was supposed to be this weird, wacky filmmaker. No. I'm even thinking about the years where I thought, I'm not on the path, I'm at home and I'm sick and miserable, and I'm babysitting, and I'm taking care of London as a baby. And now I sit there, I'm gonna get super emotional, so I'm just so you know, if I sound weird and monotone, I'm holding it in. I sit there with this young man, 16 now, and yeah, he's a little exasperating sometimes, and he does the roll your eyes and the monosyllabic thing, and I'm hungry, and all that. But I'm sitting here with this young man who is incredibly emotionally intelligent. He is really, really smart, although not good at school and grades, but neither was I, neither was a lot of people I know. The system sucks, you know. Who is just like, he's just so emotionally intelligent and capable of having really deep conversations with you, and I'm talking to him and I just feel such like a strong connection and a bond with this kid. And I realize it's because all of those years that rather than being raised by daycare or somewhere else, which he would have been if I had been healthy and the plan had gone according to plan and I had been out on tour and I'd been playing guitar for other people or touring with my own band, how would he have grown up? He would have grown up without me a lot less, and instead he grew up with me there every day, all day, in all of those most important formative years, from 0 to 7 or 8. And I think, look at how that paid off. This incredible young person, just the love of my life, this kid. And you know, maybe it wouldn't have been like that if things hadn't gone awry for me. So maybe, just maybe, you are in the middle of being off the path or feeling like you're stranded, lost in the woods, lost in the weeds. You're a castaway on a deserted island, desert island, and you're just, nothing's going right. I'm wasting my time spinning my wheels. You never know the kind of input that you're having with the people, your fellow castaways, the people you're stuck with, or if you're at that job and you're the one being positive for your coworkers, or you're the one that smiled at the guy that was just at the end of his rope that day and changed his mind about doing something horrible. You never know the kind of impact you make, you know. And everybody knows they're going to make an impact in their kid's life one way or another, but you just never know. As he's telling me stories and he's saying things back to me, I'm hearing so much of the good part of myself coming out of his mouth, and I'm like, wow, what a... See, I'm not going to cry by the ocean. That would be very corny. But I'm just really like emotionally overwhelmed by it, thinking like, what a blessing that I was sick and miserable and stuck at home. I mean, I never took it out on him, don't get me wrong. I wasn't miserable in front of my family. But what a blessing that I was able to have so much time with them, and that now seeing the way it like paid off weirdly. And then, of course, there was all the years where I had to rebuild my life and be out there and traveling and doing all this kind of stuff. But he had, you know, but it worked out because I knew I had to build up to be able to rent like a house so he could be with me when he's in the teenage years, because I knew the teenage years would be difficult. And I figured maybe he would get along with me a little bit better than his other family, which turned out to be the case sometimes. And it's important, I think, for teenage guys to have their dads around. Very important thing if that's manageable. And it worked out. So there was a lot of years of roaming a lot. And I've been home a lot more lately. And sometimes, even now, I get that feeling. Maybe it's permanently burned into all of us of like, I'm not on the right path. I'm not doing everything that I could do. I could be filming so much more. And I see friends of mine who are out there filming daily, and they're traveling more than me, and they're doing this and doing that. I'm never jealous, but I'm always like, oh man, it burns me up. Like I want to get out there. I want to work super hard. I want to be making stuff every day. If I want to fly to Iceland and make a video out there, I want to go to the Star Wars locations in Tunisia. What am I doing? What am I doing? I'm filming in an antique store. What am I doing? I got to get out there or whatever. And so I get like that sometimes. And then I realize, like, no, these years that have been wacky because of COVID and Allie being sick and me being home a lot, and I was home a lot this last year because London was really struggling with school, and just my proximity was a key factor in helping him pass 10th grade. We did it. So he could be near my mom, and he could be near everybody that was helping with homework who's smarter than me. Really, my mom really is the savior there, the guardian angel of London. But again, I'm just taking stock of the last year, and then he's describing his last year, the way he saw it in his plan, and I think, geez, what a weird blessing that Allie was sick, and then I got to be home more, and I got to spend so much more time, and he's pretty much ended up being at my house all the time, which is closer to his school, and then closer access to my mom, my brother, who helped him a lot with homework and being able to do stuff. And so, again, even now, I'm sure there are plenty of people who be like, oh, Justin, he must have this great, perfect life. And even now, when I'm succeeding in others' eyes, I'm still like, I'm failing, and I still have trials and tribulations. You know, I've got friends who are rich and powerful and successful out there living their lives, and I can't keep my cars running, you know, and I can't get out there as much as I want to get out, and I want to connect more and do more. We're at Midsummer Scream, shake hundreds of people's hands, and I'm like, I wish we could do this more. Why can't we afford a trailer so we can put this in there? I wish I could afford that, and we'd be able to meet more people, do more meetups. I'm not doing enough meetups. I'm a failure. And then I realized the grass is always greener. There's always more that you feel like you could be doing. But my grandpa used to say, and I'm not saying this isn't coming from me, I don't know that this is true, but my grandpa used to always say, and he had a tough life in a lot of ways, and everybody always reminds me of this, all my aunts and my cousins and everybody, everything happens for a reason. It's corny, it's cheesy, some people rail against that. But maybe sometimes, in some cases, in some lives, maybe that's true. Maybe there's a reason we go through it. Maybe there's a hereafter in which it all pays off, or maybe it pays off down here. I don't know. I don't know much about the afterlife. I've never been there. But sometimes I just think about the weird forks in the road that I've been down that I didn't mean to go down, or sometimes I didn't want to go down and went down kicking and screaming. And then I think of these days with London and these conversations and these things with him, and just how like amazing of a kid that he is. And I think maybe there's a plan, or maybe the universe has got it sorted out for me, or maybe, you know, I was meant to go through that stuff. And if not, then maybe dealing with it and trying to stay positive and getting on the quest for positivity really did pay off, because I couldn't control the circumstances a lot of times. Sometimes I could, and it was important to do what I could. But I could control my reaction. It took me many years to learn that I could control my reaction to negative things. Bob Gurr and I have talked about this a lot, on how when you're a young man, negative things happen to you, and your initial instinct is just to get angry, and how it takes many, many years sometimes, and for some people it never happens, to sort of break free of that getting angry thing and realizing that's so wasteful of your energy, and anger doesn't do much. There's a time and a place for anger, don't get me wrong. To everything there is a season. But yeah, to turn away from anger, or in my case, instead of turning away from anger and bitterness, turn away from, you know, just whipping myself, self-flagellation and putting myself down and taking it all out of myself and getting all cranky, and learning to go, focus. Can't control this crappy situation, but maybe there's something good will come out of this, even if I can't see it in the moment. And I think I'm still not great at it, but I think that being on the quest for positivity has opened my mind to more positive possibilities all the time. I've definitely taken, you know, more steps in the right direction over the last couple of years than I would have had you given me the same opportunities or options years ago. If that makes any kind of sense. I'm sort of rambling here. That's kind of the point, though, of the good old Sometimes vlog. Look at this giant piece of seaweed, looks like a whip. That's what I'm talking about. I would have grabbed that thing years ago and just whipped myself for not doing good enough. And now I've learned that, you know what? Okay, even if it was your fault, even if it was a failure, even if you were a bad person at different times, or you reacted totally wrong, or you've hurt people, it's never too late to turn it around. The last chapter isn't written. The curtain hasn't come down on the stage. It's not over, and it's not too late, unless you're a dead crab next to what looks like a Walmart thing of nacho cheese, and someone ate you on the beach. Then it might be too late. But otherwise, if you're still breathing, there's still hope. So those are my thoughts today about nothing. And I'm sorry if some of that's been repeated from previous years, but a lot of people told me, like, what's up with the quest for positivity? Never talking about the quest for positivity. Because I'm living with it, struggling with it all the time. I think a lot of people, maybe because I didn't talk about it for so long, I think probably because I'm like, I have the raddest job. I have the raddest little wifelet in the world. Allie is the best. London is the best. And even though I struggle, with all kinds of stuff, whenever I share a struggle, like if I say, oh man, you know, we ran out of cash, so I came home. People go, oh, always complaining about money. What are you trying to do? Trying to, you know, say something there? You're trying to hint at something and give me some money? No, I'm just sharing what happened to me. Whenever I share, oh, I'm frustrated with this about this, someone who's lonely will go, well, at least you have Allie. You don't know what that's like. And there's always someone to go, oh, you think that's bad? Well, you should be grateful. Why? Who lost all their clothes out here? Maybe I don't want to know. And so for a long time I clammed up, and then at the same time a lot of our struggles were Allie's health, and that was private for a long time until I did the video where I told everyone, hey, here's what's going on because we're going to the hospital. I don't know when I'm going to be able to make videos or be back. And she decided that she got brave enough to go public with that stuff and share that struggle with people, which apparently a lot of people are like, man, thank you for sharing that stuff. It's helped me feel more brave about my own thing and to be more open about my own thing, which is really cool. But yeah, for a lot of years, I didn't want to talk about the struggles that we were having because they weren't mine, if that makes sense. They were more in another field. And so I just got in the habit of not talking about it really. And so maybe for that reason, people have taken the old quest for positivity stuff and sort of distorted it in their minds and remembered it wrong. You are remembering it wrong. The quest for positivity was never about, well, the situation's negative, but you gotta love, 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 positive, 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 just be positive all the time, pee, pee, super positive, 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 pee, pee, pee. That was never the point. To fake being positive, oh my gosh, OHV, bullet holes. It's the Fratellis right there. Bam, 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 bam. Sorry, we're very close to Astoria down there, so I got Goonies on the brain. To fake being positive is toxic. It is just so toxic. There's an old expression, fake it till you make it. It doesn't work like that. You got to make it till you make it. You got to make the best thing ever and do your best to make it. I know a lot of people who faked it until they made it. Whether that's, I'm pretending I like this ice cream cone till I become the ambassador of this ice cream cone or whatever. I know people who faked it till they made it. I don't think that's right though. I think it's make it till you make it. I cannot remember who just said that to me recently. I'm like, that is perfect. Make it till you make it. And so the quest for positivity is a little bit fake it till you make it, I guess, and people take that from it because there's a little bit of like, hey, the clouds are here, look for the silver lining, look for the hope, look for the thing that you can be grateful for, all that kind of stuff that I've talked about before. But it's not a matter of like, oh, you're being negative, that's not very Q for P, that's not very quest for positivity. I see people doing that, or like, oh, Q for P is at an all-time low. I see that quote a lot from different people. Q for P is at an all-time low because something negative happens. Like, that's not when it's low, that's when it kicks in. The quest for positivity is not about pretending everything's positive or just being happy and positive all the time. The quest for positivity was being beaten the heck with 2 L's down, life being horrible, being diseased, being rejected, being dumped, being alone, being a loser, and the entire world thinking you're a loser because you're going and walking around filming a theme park, and maybe you are a loser, you're a loser. Being at the depths of despair, being a loser. Literally going to sleep and thinking, God, I hope I don't wake up tomorrow. I mean, just being at the bottom. And then going, okay, I can't control this. I can't control this feeling. It's horrible. I feel like I just don't want to ever open my eyes again. But I'm going to get up tomorrow. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to keep breathing. I'm going to keep walking. Even though I'm not on the path that I think I should be on, I'm going to keep walking because I don't want it to end here. I want to find out how it ends. I want to find out what's next. And tomorrow, instead of letting that despair overcome me and just cloud my sky forever, tomorrow I'm going to rise up like the bright sun, and I'm going to burn off the cloud cover, and I'm going to have a sunny day. And you know what? If it's cloudy again tomorrow, I'm going to wake up the next day, because all storms pass, the clouds eventually break. One day I will see something that was worth seeing if I just keep walking. If I just keep walking, something will change. That's what the quest for positivity was. That's what it meant for me. Maybe kind of people sort of lightheartedly joshing me about it or using it sarcastically to make fun of me or something like that. It kind of made me a little also quiet and clam up about it. But it's always been it saved my life. And there was a lot of little pieces of input, things I remember from my grandparents, definitely a lot of input from my parents, the people that I grew up with, and people of faith around me, and, you know, even little snippets of self-help things, who knows, little bits and pieces, whatever positive stuff that I could collate in my brain and put into some kind of a path or a plan to just wake up, keep breathing. I would force myself to go on walks sometimes and it's just miserable. There'd be trash and dead crabs everywhere, whatever. And I just look at the tops of the trees and see the trees going in the wind and birds flying around and go, okay, well, there's life. Some days all I could muster was, well, at least not everybody else is miserable. I'm telling you, and it's not just in those dark times where I could give you a list that everybody would go, whoa, yeah, that did suck for you. That was a sucky time. And sometimes it's during the times where everybody's like, man, you lucky dog, and they all think I'm the luckiest person in the world, and they think I got nothing to cry about. Some of those times, I feel the same way. I think I'll always have that struggle. Ooh, the cops are coming. They're looking for the Fratellis. I think I'll always have that struggle with depression, with anxiety. But that's going to be a lifelong thing. And I'm always going to struggle with not feeling like I'm on the right path or not doing whatever. It might just be baked into the personality. Who knows? Maybe that's going to be an ongoing thing for my life. They're wondering, like, is he after us? I'm wondering that too. So maybe it'll be a forever thing. Maybe it'll be an ongoing thing that I will always have to struggle with. That's the quest for positivity. The quest for positivity is being low, being beat down, or those moments where, yeah, everything could be going great, but I go, man, did I do enough? Did I do the right thing? Did I fail? Am I a failure? And then going, that is just negative. That is so negative. Just getting sucked back into that void that always, it's there for each one of us. It's always there. Even the most positive, funny person you know, it's always, always there. That yawning vortex, just open, waiting to swallow you. But you know what? That's why you got to keep walking. Keep walking. Don't let it get you. Don't let it swallow you. Don't let it get you down. It's not over. Keep on walking. All right, friends. Well, I'm going to keep on walking. It's time for me to head on back. Not that one, that one. Down the beach to the hotel, rather. Go spend some time with my kiddo, who by now is probably eating his stuff. I told him I'd be back in about 30 minutes. Now it's about 47 minutes or 45 minutes. He could see me from the hotel. He could see me as I get closer to the water. Time for me to go back. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff I've been thinking about. Oh, there's a guy who walked out into the waves. There's really strong currents out there. You're not supposed to swim out there. And he's just swimming out there, but he seems to be fine, but everybody else is panicking around him, and the cops coming to yell at him and go, you're not supposed to be in there. And now they're panicking, like, you gotta come back, the cops are here. Not panicking because he's drowning or anything like that. So, whew, nobody's at risk. See, something worse could always be happening. Anyway, that's what's going on over there. So I'm going back. Forgive the rambling, forgive the going on at the mouth. That's a thing that's another thing I've always suffered from my entire life, being a little too verbose, going on too long, and I tend to use way too many analogies to make the same point. I really do love and appreciate all of you guys who've stuck with me for so many years, even those of you who come on board, who believe in the quest for positivity. You hear screaming, but they're not screaming in terror. They're screaming at the person like, how dare you, look, the cop is here. How dare you be in the beach? Oh my gosh. It's just one of those things. Thank you guys for being there. I do love and appreciate all of you that have been there for me, whether that's just sharing a video, the Patreon stuff, buying a t-shirt. When I see someone with the hat, it's just like, oh, there are kindred spirits out there. There are people who understand what it's like to keep on walking. So that is my only advice. Just keep going. You don't know how it's going to end. When anybody comes to me and goes, dude, I'm at the end, I'm not a therapist. The best thing I can tell you is go find a real qualified therapist. Go find someone who really knows. Talk to your elders. Talk to your older people around you, people who've been through a similar situation. But I think most of them are going to tell you kind of some version of this. My only piece of advice would be, you got to keep walking. You don't want it to end here. It's the dark chapter. You got to keep going, or it's never going to change. The story doesn't change if you don't keep turning the page. Keep on walking. So, to all of those of you who think you're on the wrong path, that's my one piece of advice, my one piece of encouragement. I wish I'd heard the same words to me. Sometimes I did. I wasn't always wise enough to hear them when I did get those words spoken to me. But there you go. Keep on walking, keep on trucking. Go home and sleep well.